You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, joined by Brian Smith, the Florida football scout, who is here to impart some knowledge on all of us poor people. Anyway, before we get to that, though, I do want to let you know he is the LinkedIn college football recruiting expert. LinkedIn is the college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On Podcast Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Now, Brian, Ole Miss is going through, it looks like they're going to try and get several running backs. It looks like Henry Parrish is going to end up in Oxford when everything is said and done. But another running back has been offered per Steve Wiltfong, and that is Trent Howland, a running back from Indiana. What do you know about Trent, and what kind of a player would Ole Miss be getting if he chose to go there?
He's massive for a running back, listed at 6'3", 240. I was looking at his stats earlier. I just pulled him back up. Wisconsin game, 13 carries, 72 yards. Michigan State game, 19 carries, 77 yards. Between the tackles, power player. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be something that Lane and like his diverse offense is going to do much to throw him the ball. I mean, he did have 3 catches last year, but I think he's mostly a power guy, pass protection, and kind of a change of pace from some of the shifty guys that Ole Miss would have.
Yeah, I mentioned in my podcast in the course of the week that Ole Miss is trying to find players in the portal that fills a role, not a hole. And this would be a thumper-style running back for Lane Kiffin, a first and goal from the 2, a first and goal from the 4. Somebody like that will make linebackers really sweat and have to respect the power run game.
Yeah, and Lane does as good a job as there is, as you know, Stephen, with RPO. Even if you're your own 20, if you don't respect the run, that kid's going to run over you. The linebacker's got to be pretty much privy to it. So slots and tight ends, play action over the middle will be a little more open. That is not a guy I want to get in front of if he's got 3-4 steps of momentum. You need to get to him early. He's too big. So I think it's a smart move. You just need somebody that's a different back. I think that's a good idea for the Rebs.
Yeah, and when you look at a running back like Trent Howland, there's 75, 354, 2 touchdowns. Like I said, he fills a role, not a hole. But I do want to mention this guy before we move on, and that is Henry Parrish Jr. There's rumors everywhere about Henry Parrish perhaps ending up back in Oxford. What type of a running back was he at Miami? I know you have a little bit of a relationship down there with the Hurricanes. What are their opinions of Henry Parrish Jr.?
Really shifty, tough runner for his size. He's slightly under 200 pounds or right at it, and he breaks tackles. He's not a true burner, but he can catch the ball well, and he'll do a little bit of everything. Not afraid of physicality. He can be a 3-down back for you. So if they added him, I mean, good heavens, they would be in about as good a shape as you can get, especially if you add a 240-pound bruiser along with it.
Yeah, you can kind of see the puzzle that they're putting together. It's kind of like when you have the jigsaw puzzle. It starts out with the pieces everywhere, but once you get close to the end, you can kind of make out the picture a little bit. This transfer portal season, you're starting to see that. Now, before we go into the break, are there any weird things that you've heard going on in the portal this season? I want some rumors. I want some gossip. I want something juicy.
This is as wild as it gets, but it doesn't surprise me, and it probably doesn't surprise you. There's a kid that didn't even want to get in the portal, and I won't mention names of schools, but another couple of schools contacted him. He was offered $500,000 to transfer, and he wasn't even a starter, but he's a defensive tackle. They're rare. We both know you can't teach size, and a few schools are just like trying to shore up to at least make a run at Georgia this year, and that's crazy. I'm like, for him, because I know this guy, he's just, he started a few games, but he's just kind of a role player. I'm like, that's a 1-year rental for $500,000. You have to be kidding me. So if we've gotten to that point, the portal is obviously not what it's been intended to be.
Yeah, and And I tell people all the time is like, this is the normal way that whenever something goes from amateur to professional, this is the normal track that it goes. If you go back to the very beginning of baseball, it started in a situation just like this, to where people were going on there and then they were going year to year and things like that. The Pittsburgh Pirates got their nickname because they would poach players off of other teams year to year. This is not a new concept. The fact of the matter is we're going to have to go through some growing pains, though, before it gets better.
Well, the NCAA right now isn't monitoring anything. They're about as worthless as it gets. So I don't even know what you call it other than just a bunch of people offering money, and it's as simple as free agency. It's really what it is.
Twice a year free agency.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of the kids are coerced to leave.
Yeah, you have a situation like Caden Proctor, who transferred from Iowa back to Alabama after leaving Alabama for Iowa before he suits up, I think, one time and
transferring back.
Is like, what are we even doing here?
That one's pretty bad. I mean, that's pretty bad. There's no way money wasn't involved, and I was told that it was. Alabama needs a left tackle. I don't know what else to tell you. They ponied up, so whatever. He's a good player.
Yeah, baseball's answer to when they went through this was the reserve clause. That came in, and that was 100 years of lack of movement for players at all before it got overturned, I guess, in the 70s in the
like
Kurt Flood case.
1974 or something like that.
Yeah, but it was like 100 years of that going in there, and it was a direct result of exactly what we're seeing in college sports right now.
Yep. But the problem now is there's so much leeway in terms of jurisdiction because of MLB partially for the players to have movement ability. There's no good way to do it. There's no perfect answer now.
Yeah.
And you can't restrict Johnny, but not Timmy. I get it. Legally, this is going to be a mess. So I don't know how they're going to fix it.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. When we come back, yes, we're going to get into some high school recruiting. We got the Florida football scout here. We'll talk to him about that. Before we do that, I do want to tell you about Monopoly Go. We've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure how your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift your head up, say to yourself, it's time to get back in this game and pull off some bank heist and take as much money from my friends as I possibly can. That's right. It's the smash hit mobile game, Monopoly Go. It lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's Monopoly you love, but on your phone, anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress with your buddies. There's so much you can do. You can play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. You can make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, charge other players rent on your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb up the leaderboard. So go back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home those huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all that screaming and shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel designed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinion, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Brian, let's change the subject and move over to high school recruiting, because we're kind of getting ready to get into official visit season. And we're going to get into camp season now that we're leaving combine season. For people that are not familiar with what's going on in high school recruiting, what's the calendar look like right now?
Right now, we're getting ready to go into full-fledged official visits. There's been a few kids take visits. You can do it in April, but at the end of the month, not this weekend, you're going into that beginning of May and all that. Like, you're going to see kids start taking visits constantly. Ole Miss, I'm sure, is part of that. And also, it's really accelerated. Like, we're talking about 25 kids for the OVs. There are tons of kids that are 26 kids, only going to be juniors, taking a gazillion unofficials right now. Recruiting's hard to follow. You're going to see kids commit. You're going to have to check what year it is. That's how fast this has gotten, which is even hard for me to understand. And I am a guy that follows the underclassmen ranks. But some of the names that I'm curious about coming up that will end up playing Ole Miss more than likely: Juju Lewis, the kid out of Georgia that's committed to SC, arguably the best player in the country. Auburn, Alabama are probably the favorites, even though he's committed to SC. There's a couple of kids in your neck of the woods. Everybody's still trying to go after a Kylan Deere, although I think he's going to end up at Ole Miss. Right now, I think Ole Miss is going to get 6 or 7 of the top kids in the state. I'm sure Ole Miss fans are probably happy about that. But, they're doing their due diligence and they're being smart and not just taking kids. I only got like 4 commitments. That's okay. It's better to get the better players at the end. That's the same thing that Saban always did too. It kind of worked out for him. So I think the visits, though, are the biggest thing. I've seen a bunch of kids with commitments over the last few days, a lot of mid-level schools, Charlotte, that kind of stuff. That's great. But the best players are going to make decisions in June, July, and August, and Ole Miss is in position.
Yeah, now you mentioned, I think it was Juju Smith, the quarterback out of Carrollton, Georgia. He's visiting
Juju Lewis. Yeah.
Juju Lewis. He's visiting Dion in Colorado.
That's the other wild card there. That's really wild.
Also, this is kind of, even though you're in Alabama now, I'm going to say this is kind of your neck of the woods. Cormani McClain going into the portal. This is a guy that, we were at the Under Armour All-American game. He wasn't doing any media and all that. Everybody was wondering, is it Florida? Is it Miami? He ended up at Colorado. He ended up leaving Colorado. Dion had a parting shot for him on podcast form. It's like, hey, I wish him all the best. I wish he could find a place that could give him discipline, because we couldn't do that. And that's the most backhanded thing ever, I think. But I think he's burned bridges at Miami because of the way the original recruitment went. I think he's burned bridges at Florida. Is this Alabama, Georgia, or kind of bust for this player?
I don't know where he's going to end up. Van Dyke, that was the DB coach at Miami, is now at USF. UCF, I guarantee you, would take him because they want the exposure, and they recruit the Lakeland area where you live really heavily. I don't know if Florida State would. I doubt it. They're pretty loaded. Corey Raymond was the DB coach at Florida. He's now at LSU, maybe, but I wouldn't count out anything because he's so freaking talented. It's not even funny.
Yeah, the LSU is like by far the best fit for this defensive back because they need secondary pieces. Their secondary was absolutely trash a year ago.
If you watch their spring game, it's still trash.
Yeah, they need a talent infusion. So, I mean, it would make a ton of sense.
I don't know where he's going to go, brother, but they need some help. I fear LSU is going to score 35-plus points a game again this year and go 8-4.
Yeah, and they don't have a Heisman quarterback this year. They've got a
good
quarterback.
But he's not a Heisman, though. Yeah,
he's not Jaden Daniels. Garrett Nussmeier's good, but Jaden Daniels unlocked some stuff that you couldn't get before.
100%. Yeah, I don't think it's going to work out very well in Baton Rouge this year.
Yeah, and you see like weird like 24/7 rankings talking about them for the playoff. Is like, quit judging off of the helmet decal, people. Actually watch what's going on and realize what's happening.
Yeah, they don't do that.
Yeah,
I don't think LSU is a playoff team. What I saw their defense do, I don't.
I think let's see if LSU, where would they fit in the SEC? I think they would fit right around where Oklahoma is going to end up.
Somewhere between 5 and 8.
Yeah, somewhere just a completely middling team. Of course, 5 and 8 would be the top half of the league, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, they'll be competitive because they can score, but are they going to beat top-notch teams that have defenses?
Yeah.
I highly doubt that.
It's a situation that they got to play Alabama. I'm assuming they always do.
A&M and
you can't
different teams,
yeah,
it's hard.
you look at it as like you can't count on them to beat A&M. You just can't count on them to beat Ole Miss. You can't count on them to beat, what is it? I don't even think you can count on them to beat Oklahoma. That could be a really troublesome game for them.
They've got USC and UCLA on their schedule this year too. They got a weird schedule.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Anyway, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Brian Smith, the Florida football scout, Locked On's recruiting analyst, came on the show. Thank you so much, bud. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, buddy. Take care.